Welcome to class today. My name is Paul, and we're going to do a practice dedicated to the low back. I'm going to teach you a few alignment principles and yoga postures that can help relieve low back issues, and especially if you deal with chronic tension and discomfort, this is one to come back to again and again. You'll want to have a block. If you have two blocks, have them both, but at least one yoga block handy. And if you don't have a block, just have a sofa cushion nearby, because we're going to be hugging in to the midline, squeezing a block or cushion between the thighs for a few of the poses. And this is really helpful for releasing tension in the low back. And we add 3 new classes to the channel every week, and all of these classes have a healthy dose of alignment. So if you are looking to find greater freedom in your low back and greater strength, check out some of the other classes on the channel and be sure to subscribe so you never miss a class. All right, I'm so happy to have you here. Let's get started. We'll begin on hands and knees with a block or a cushion. And you can take your block the narrow way and squeeze it between the upper inner thighs. So the key here is we're learning to hug into the midline, and this engages the adductor muscles and helps to release the low back. Place your hands under your shoulders, spread your fingers, squeeze your block, take a breath in through your nose, and then exhale completely. With your inhalation, arch your spine coming into the dog tilt or cow position. To squeeze the block between the thighs, look forward. And as you continue to squeeze the block, scoop your tailbone and around into cat position. Inhaling, cow, arching your spine, squeeze the block. The key is the block is not there just to be there, right? We're working actively. Exhale, come into cat position, like you're trying to crush the block. Inhaling, we'll arch. Exhaling, scoop under and around. One more each direction. Inhale, arch. Exhale, scoop under and around. Inhaling, arch. Good. Then release, and you can grab a hold of your block and come to standing. And we'll place the block again, upper inner thighs. Feet are hip bone distance apart. Now squeeze the block and bend your knees pretty deeply, like you're coming towards chair pose, but then arch your low back. So think curve to the low back. And you can rest your hands on your thighs. You could also maybe even bring your forearms down. This is called the downhill skier pose. Check your feet out. Make sure your feet are parallel to each other. Try to lift the arches of your feet. Squeeze the block. Big squeeze. And then move your sitting bones back and apart as you lift through your chest. So you're trying to keep the curve in the low back. Squeeze the block. And if at any point any of these postures create too much discomfort, please do come out. You just got to honor your body. Create greater awareness and understanding in your body. Now, squeezing the block, we're going to work towards straightening the legs, but only so much as you can keep the curve to the back. You can slide your hands down the shins or even the ankles. If you start to round in the back, that's where you know you need to back off a little bit and come back to the curve. So you can work towards straighter and straighter. For some of us, maybe hands can come to a chair or a block or even the floor, as long as you're not rounding your back. Squeeze your block. Big squeeze. Let's take 2 more breaths here. Be where you need to be. Maybe you're still in the skier pose with forearms on the thigh. You're keeping the curve in your back. Inhale will slowly ground through the leg and rise up. If you have 2 blocks, have them both handy. If you don't have blocks, don't worry about it. We're coming into Anjaneyasana, the low lunge position. And if you don't have blocks, we're going to work hands to thighs. You could go both hands resting on the front thigh. So hip flexors and hamstring muscles, we're going to utilize the stretching of these muscles to help release the back. So right leg is forward, left leg is back. And start to lunge into the front leg. So right knee just moving a little bit past the right ankle. Try to stay more vertical through your torso, and your hands can rest on your blocks or hands clasped on the front thigh. We'll create tone and strength here. Right foot, left knee pulling towards each other as we stretch the hip flexor muscles. So we're not just lunging and putting everything into the front leg, but we're finding this balance of pulling in and releasing as we stretch. Lift through your chest. One more breath here. Then inhale and rise. We'll come into runner stretch. So the hamstring muscles, right, connect right here into the back of the pelvis. And if they're tight, they can pull us into a rounded back. So the more we can learn how to stretch the hamstring muscles, the more movement we'll have in the pelvis to hopefully help release the low back. Now we're trying to keep a curve to the back. So instead of rounding in here, we want to back off, which is why hands on blocks or hands on a chair can be helpful. So keep the curve to your back, press the right heel down, try to pull back. So it's an isometric action. Turn the belly over your thigh and then reach out through your spine. But again, not rounding the low back. And just feel the stretch, even if you're really open in the hamstring. Keeping the curve, but working this optimally, you'll feel the stretch. I feel a big stretch in my right hamstring here. So relax your face. Don't overdo any of these postures. Just find the sweet spot. You feel good stretch. You're able to relax your face. Let's take one more breath here. And then inhale and rise. And we'll go to the second side. Right knee on the floor, left foot on the floor. Hands either on blocks or hands on the front thigh. Could also, if you're near like a coffee table or a sofa, you could have, for balance purposes, have your hand or hands on something. Left foot, right knee, pull in towards each other and lunge into the front leg. Lift through the chest. You want to feel as you lift a nice pull here through the hip flexors. You can look straight ahead, or if it feels okay to look slightly upwards, we'll do that. Inhale and rise up, coming into our runner stretch or half Hanuman. Hands up high, keep the curve to your back. Press your left heel down and try to pull back isometrically. Just feel the stretch. Lengthen forward through your spine. Just notice where in your body you're feeling tension. Soften your jaw, soften your eyes. Deep breath. One more breath here. Good. Slowly release. And let's come on to our belly for Sphinx Pose. So elbows under the shoulders. If it's too much pressure in the back, being this high off the floor, you could also walk your elbows forward. The main action here is we're pulling the forearms and hands isometrically back. So we're trying to get a slight curve to the upper back, little back bend here. Reach out through your toes. So a few breaths here. Working actively, you feel your shoulders strengthening. And at the same time, there's this balance of effort and softness. Soften the jaw, soft eyes. To release the quads, we'll do thigh stretch on the belly. So you can turn the left forearm in and reach back with the right hand, pulling the foot down. If you need to decrease the curve in the low back, you could also walk the forearm out further so you're not lifting up as high. And for those who are able to do the full rotation here, this is a much deeper form of the posture. Stretching through the quads. Just be where you need to be. Exhale and release. We'll do the second side. Left arm reaches back. Right forearm on the floor. Pull the left foot in. Lift through the heart. It's relaxing your jaw, softening your eyes. Breathe. One more breath here. And release. Come to a seat. Figure four to help open the hips. Now, supine figure four, doing this on your back can be great, but for some of us, the roundedness that happens there is too intense. So seated, right, we can keep more of a curve to the back. And the more you walk your front foot in, the more you walk your hands in, the deeper the stretch. But main thing here is we're trying to keep a curve to the low back. And if you prefer to do this on your back for figure four, you're welcome to do that. I like the stretch here, and I like keeping the curve to the low back. So lift through your chest. You can walk your hands back as much as necessary to keep the lift. Resist your left knee forward. And the key is the outer edge of the left foot draws back. That'll stabilize the knee joint. So releasing all these parts of the body, the hips, hamstrings, quads, hip flexors, create greater freedom in the back. Lift through your chest. One more breath. And exhale and release. And we'll switch, crossing the right ankle just over the left knee. Activate your right foot. Resist your right knee forward. Lift through the heart. Relax your face. Breathe. Exhale and release. All right, grab a hold of your block, and if you have a belt, have your yoga belt handy or some kind of towel or something to wrap around your foot for our supine hamstring stretch. But first, take your block the narrow way between the thighs. Tuck your shoulders under, bringing your shoulder blades closer to the spine. Squeeze the block between your thighs, and then we'll lift the hips up for bridge pose. But squeeze the block. So again, the adductors, the inner thigh muscles are working. And to help fire up the hamstrings, press your feet down and pull them isometrically towards the shoulders. So you feel your hamstrings working, and all of this helps to take the tension out of the glutes and the low back. And if you do bridge pose and it's too much pressure in the back, then you could do the same thing, just hips on the floor, squeezing the block without lifting up. Definitely good strengthener, good posture for prevention and for creating more tone and stability through the whole body, through the glutes, through the hamstrings, and into the back. Exhale and release. All right, set your block off to the side. Now, if you don't have a belt or something to place around your foot, you could also grab the back of your thigh. The key here is we are keeping a natural curve to the low back. So we'll place the belt around the right foot as we stretch the leg up. The low back is not pressing into the floor. If it is, then you know you need to bring your foot more towards the front of the room to find a curve. And we can stay here with the left knee bent. For some of us, if it feels okay, you could also stretch the left leg out. keep the curve to your low back. And that's where the healing happens in this pose. As you draw your foot overhead, resist your right hip towards the front of your mat. One more breath. And slowly release, and we'll place the belt around the left foot. Right foot is flat on the floor. A natural curve to your low back. If you want to stretch the right leg out, you're welcome to do so. Resist your left hip towards the front of the room as you draw your left foot overhead. Nice hamstring stretch. But keeping the curve is the key, and that's where the healing happens. Don't worry how far overhead your left foot goes. And then exhale, slowly release. Bring both feet to the floor and just sway your hips a little, knees a little bit side to side, windshield wiper. And then we'll come into Shavasana. For some of us, we might need to keep the knees bent. You could also extend the legs, but place a cushion or a couple of blocks under your knees, especially if you lie flat on the ground and you find that there's a lot of tension in the back. I know that's a common occurrence for many practitioners. So knees bent with a cushion, feet on the floor, great option to close out. I'm going to leave you here in Shavasana. I hope you found this practice useful and helpful. It's definitely one to come back to again and again. If you can stay in rest for a few minutes here, please do so. Thanks, as always, for joining me on the mat. It's a pleasure to practice with you. I wish you a beautiful rest of your day. Namaste.